Hey guys, today I'm going to show you how to do just a standard pre-made drywall patch on this hole right here on the wall. This actually is an old house and you have to retrofit and make things work with the weird shape of an old house and the modern conveniences we have today. So this is a weird little ledge on the stairs and it used to be the dryer, and that was where the dryer was vented out. But now we have moved it to a more convenient location because we've been able to renovate the whole property and we need to just patch that little hole. There's lots of ways to patch a hole. When you have a standard size hole like this, you can use a pre-made patch like this and it's super easy. The thing you want to remember with drywall, guys, is everything is fixable. You can do as many coats as you need to. You can sand this as many times as you need to until you paint this. This is water soluble, so you can sand it, or you could even use like a really wrung out damp rag if you don't want a lot of dust to wipe the compound back off. So don't be afraid to try to fix your drywall yourself because it's really easy to remove what you've put on if you mess up. And you can do as many coats as you need to if you're DIYing this in your own home. So don't be too freaked out. So we've already measured. I got a patch. This is a pre-made patch. It has wire mesh. It's pre-adhesed, and then it's got metal, aluminum in it, so it's not going to rust because there's going to be moisture in drywall compound. And so I'm just going to put this right on, and then I'm going to mix up some drywall compound and start my patching process. So I got my hole is about 4 inches, so I got a 6-inch piece so I can just have some overage. And I'm actually, before I put that on, I'm gonna scrape off these edges real quick because they're not flush. I want it to be as smooth as I can get it to start. So I'm gonna get anything sticking out of the way. And I've already filled and insulated inside of it, so I have my nice spray foam in there. I'm wiping off anything loose, and any of this drywall paper like that brown stuff, where it's loose, we're gonna wanna cut that off or peel that off. So if you have a lot of looseness, maybe cut that with a utility knife. And then I have some texture here, because we actually had this house re-drywalled, and I think we just had a miscommunication that this also needed to be covered. So I'm gonna put my patch on. The thing that I like about the patches with the metal lath or the metal mesh in them is it gives it a little bit of structural integrity. When you do corners, there's different types. When you do drywall, you can use like a mesh piece, or you can use paper tape to do your corners or any seams. The problem is when you have just mesh like this, is if it gets a lot of weight of the drywall compound, it starts to kind of bulb out and get bulbous. So when you're doing a patch like this, if you have the strength of this metal reinforcement, it helps that not to bulge out too much. As it always goes, my topping compound for repairs was too dry, so I just ran to the hardware store, got a new container of compound. There are so many different brands. You don't have to use this brand, but this is for patching and repairs. I use this a lot. I've never had any problem doing repairs with this. So I am going to scoop some into my mud pan with my knife, and I'm gonna see if I like the consistency. Now, the thing with drywall compound is you can mix it and water it down if you want it a little thinner than what it is. You can use a mixer attachment on your drill. You can use just a full-blown mixer. I am gonna just mix this in my pan just because I'm just making a small amount and I don't wanna get all those things out. So I'll show you the consistency that I'm doing for my first coat, but I'm just no drywall expert, so you can kind of do what works for you. So just looking down in my bucket, this is how it came from the store. I actually, for my first coat, like it a little heavy. I don't think I need to make it super thin, so I am just gonna put some of this in my pan and mix it up and get it nice and smooth, and then I'm gonna go ahead and do my first coat on the wall. There are all different sizes of drywall putty knives. So I have the small one I like to mix with and do general purpose stuff. They have bigger ones. I have one that's even longer. I think this is probably maybe like a 14-inch. This is a 12-inch. Right now, I'm just trying to get a good coat on, so I don't really care when I start finishing. I'm gonna use one of the larger ones so I can smooth out. So basically, we wanna get full coverage, but again, your full coverage does not have to be in one coat. So whatever you're comfortable with, whatever works for you. But the concept you have to understand, if you have a texture you're trying to match, I'm lucky because I call this like an imperfect smooth texture. You can't really see it, but there is a texture, and basically all it is they took the topping compound and they've smoothed out really shallow, like it's not a thick texture, curves and and marks. So this is easy to match. It's a little bit harder with an orange pill or something like that. But basically, I mean, this is gonna bump out. You're gonna build out your patch and then you're gonna try to blend it into the surrounding area. So you have to cover your full patch. So don't panic. Again, you can sand this as many times as you need to, and you can take as much of this back off as you need to. So don't get scared that you're putting too much on. You do have to cover it, and then we're gonna blend into the surrounding area. So I'm just gonna start covering. And I think it's kind of hard to give you a view because this isn't a corner. Let me see if I can kind of stand here so you can see what I'm doing. Sorry, it's a hard angle because I'm on the stairs. But the thing is, I don't want to see the mesh texture of the patch. That has to be covered because that's not going to naturally blend with anything. So you don't have to do it in this first coat. If you're nervous, you can do a coat, let it dry, do another one. But I'm going to make sure I'm at least covering all the mesh and the visual mesh texture. And I'm going to actually zoom in so you can see what I mean by seeing the mesh texture. You can see, like right there, see that mesh? And right there, you can see the texture of the patch down there. I at least want to get coverage like that. I can blend all this later, but I want to cover up all the mesh because that never is natural with any texture that I'm aware of. All right, so I got to get a little bit thicker to get over the mesh. But if you're doing a patch, say you're doing a little bit larger patch, or maybe you're not using one of these metal patches, and it starts to sag, that's too much weight. You want to backfill, you want to let it set up, dry, strengthen, sand it down, and then go on. If it's sagging, it has too much weight on it while it's wet. And sometimes you just start doing it and you realize you're taking too much off, and you're going to have to do it in more than one coat. So right now, I think I have about what I want without being way, way, way too heavy, you guys. That's pretty thick and heavy, but I like that I have all my, I can't see any of my mesh around my patch. So I'm gonna let that dry, and then I'm gonna come back to it for another coat. The next thing I'm gonna do, I've waited about a day, just do your coat, come back the next day, make sure it's really dry, because if it is not all the way dry, for instance, if you don't have heat on in a property you're working on, or it's really humid and it's setting up slower, if this is still kind of wet, you're gonna kind of mush it when you try to work with it. So make sure that your compound has dried all the way before you start messing with it again. So I like to just take a knife and scrape off any high ridges or edges I have sticking up. See kind of in here how you have those really tall notches? I'm just gonna take my knife and do a knockdown. Now I'm bringing my big knife to do like a smoother coat on this. I think this is a 14-incher. This coat I'm doing thinner because now I'm working on winnowing my way out. I'm not trying to cover anything. Now I'm just trying to smooth my transition. I think sometimes the hard thing is when you're not on your last coat, but you're in your middle coats, at least for me, I almost start to try to make it too perfect and I just take way too much off and I realize I'm kind of gouging it and removing more than I need to. So I'm gonna stop again here. Basically, I'm almost to a smooth texture, which because my texture is this imperfect, smooth kind of texture, I just wanna get a line of smooth, a layer of smooth mud over any gouges or any indents that I have in or sticking out. And so that's actually okay for me. And then I'm probably gonna just come in and sand it a little bit and then do a couple little flips here and there to just blend with what I have around. So you wanna wait until your coat is fully dry again. Usually that's gonna be about a day. In my case, this is smooth enough of a coat that I don't need to sand it. I'm just gonna do my imperfect smooth coat over it. And so because of my texture, that's gonna work. You can see I have a couple wet spots right here and right here. If yours was still wet and you wanted to sand it, I would say just wait another day. But I'm gonna go ahead and do my texture coat so I can get this drying and hopefully come tomorrow and prime. Now, I am just going to, I've mixed a little bit more mud. I have my big, about 14-inch probably knife. And I know you can't see my texture, but it's just kind of like a smooth texture, but there's a little bit of light, a skip here, a skip there. So I'm just gonna kind of put a couple of those on here to fan this out. And if I feel like they're too aggressive, once I have them on, then I will just sand it down a little bit so it's a little milder. But I don't need a lot because this is just gonna be a thin kind of skip across it. So I'm trying to stand so I don't block as I'm doing this. I know this is stairs, so it's a weird angle, guys. Now again, you don't want to take everything off, you just put on, but my texture is really fine. It's not a thick, heavy texture, so I don't want huge chunks. I want thin kind of wisps. All right. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to let that dry. Again, if you have any big chunks or bumps or anything, you can sand it down to make it a little more mild, and then I'm going to prime it.